His Apache name was Haskabane-Nadel, which meant the tall man destined to come to a mysterious end. It was a name that sounded like destiny itself, but the white residents of Globe, Arizona, struggled to pronounce it. So they gave him a name that history would never forget: the Apache Kid. He was born in the 1860s, growing up on the harsh San Carlos Reservation. From a young age, he learned that survival wasn't just about strength. It was about understanding two worlds: the Apache world and the white man's world. He picked up English with surprising speed, found work in Globe, and soon caught the eye of Al Sieber, a hardened frontier legend and the chief of scouts for the U.S. Army. Sieber saw potential in the young man and took the kid under his wing. Around this time, General George Crook was looking for a new kind of soldier to fight a new kind of war. He needed men who knew the land, who could track, and who could fight like the enemy. He needed Apache scouts to hunt renegade Apache bands. The Apache Kid, barely a man, enlisted. He was a natural, fast, sharp, and fearless. He rose through the ranks with astonishing speed. By 1882, he was a sergeant. By 1883, he was leading missions deep into Mexico's Sierra Madre, a treacherous landscape where few soldiers returned from. During the final campaign against Geronimo, Army officers praised him as one of the finest and most reliable Apache scouts alive. He was a hero, a bridge between two cultures, and his future seemed bright and certain. Then, one night, it all came crashing down. It was May of 1887. Al Sieber and Captain John Pierce were away from the San Carlos Reservation, leaving the Apache Kid temporarily in charge of the scouts. To celebrate, the scouts started drinking Tiswin, a traditional Apache corn beer that was strictly forbidden by the Army. As the night wore on and the alcohol flowed, old tensions flared. A drunken argument spiraled into violence. A man named Gonzizi, in a fit of rage, killed the kid's father. In the chaos that followed, the kid's friends retaliated, killing Gonzizi on the spot. But for the Apache Kid, it wasn't enough. Blinded by grief and rage, he sought his own justice. He hunted down Gonzi's brother and killed him too. When the scouts, still drunk and reeling, stumbled back to camp, they were met by Captain Pierce, who had returned to find the reservation in an uproar. He ordered the scouts to disarm and line up. The Apache Kid, despite his turmoil, obeyed. He handed over his weapons. And then, from somewhere in the tense crowd, a single shot rang out. Al Sieber, who had also just returned, collapsed to the ground, his ankle shattered by a bullet. Panic erupted. The Apache scouts, fearing they were being set up for a massacre, scattered into the darkness. Although the kid was unarmed and hadn't fired the shot that wounded his mentor, suspicion immediately fell on him. He was the leader, and in the Army's eyes, he was responsible. With no other choice, he fled into the mountains, a fugitive from the very army he had served so honorably. For 2 weeks, cavalry patrols tracked him and the other scouts through the rugged canyons of Arizona. They were exhausted, cornered, and running out of options. In a desperate move, the Apache Kid sent a message to the regional commander, General Nelson Miles. He offered to surrender peacefully if the soldiers would stand down and guarantee their safety. Miles agreed. True to his word, the Apache Kid walked out of the mountains and back into the army camp, giving himself up. What followed was a legal nightmare. The scouts were court-martialed, and their sentences seemed to change with the wind. First, they were sentenced to death by firing squad. Then their sentences were reduced to life in prison. Then, just 10 years. A short time later, a higher court overturned their conviction entirely, citing prejudice in the trial, and they were released. It seemed the ordeal was finally over. But it wasn't. The moment they were freed, they were arrested again by local civilian authorities on new charges. This time, there would be no leniency. By 1889, the Apache Kid and several other prisoners were found guilty and sentenced to hard time at the infamous Yuma Territorial Prison. On a cold November day, they were chained together in a prison wagon, escorted by Sheriff Glenn Reynolds and his deputy for the long journey south. The Apache Kid would never arrive. Somewhere in the remote Arizona desert, near the Gila River, the prisoners made their move. In a desperate and violent struggle, they overpowered their guards. Sheriff Reynolds was shot and killed. Another guard died of a heart attack during the fight. A third, Eugene Middleton, was about to have his skull smashed in with a rock when the Apache Kid intervened, stopping another prisoner and saving Middleton's life. As the surviving prisoners scrambled for freedom, a freak snowstorm swept across the desert, covering their tracks in a thick blanket of white. The Apache Kid, along with his fellow escapees, simply vanished. From that moment on, the Apache Kid ceased to be just a man. He became a ghost, a legend of the Southwest. For decades, his name echoed through the canyons and across the mesas. Ranchers, miners, soldiers, and settlers reported sightings. A lone Apache raider, moving like a shadow through the mountains. A phantom who stole horses from isolated homesteads in the dead of night. A tall, silent figure who ambushed prospectors not for gold, but for food, guns, and ammunition. His legend grew with every telling. Some whispered that he kidnapped women and forced them to live with him in his hidden mountain strongholds. Others claimed he traveled with a loyal band of followers, waging a one-man war against the world that had betrayed him. Still others swore he lived as a complete hermit, a solitary specter haunting the wild places. A bounty of $5,000 a fortune at the time was placed on his head, dead or alive. Nobody ever collected it. The attempts to find him only added to his myth. In 1890, Mexican rurales ambushed and killed an Apache warrior who was carrying Sheriff Reynolds' pistol and watch. They claimed they had killed the kid, but when the body was examined, it was clear the man was far too old. The mystery deepened. In 1899, Colonel Emilio Kosterlitsky, a famed leader of the Ruel, claimed he had credible intelligence that the Apache Kid was not only alive, but thriving, leading a band of renegades deep in the Sierra Madre. Reports of raids blamed on the kid or his phantom band continued well into the 1920s, nearly 40 years after his escape. But none of these reports were ever confirmed. The Apache Kid was everywhere and nowhere at once. His death became just as mysterious as his life. Some stories claimed he was finally shot and killed by a posse of ranchers defending their property. Others said he died of disease alone in the wilderness. A popular tale insisted that he successfully slipped into Mexico and lived out his days in quiet obscurity, dying of old age, forever free. High in the San Mateo Mountains of New Mexico, there is a lonely, unmarked grave that locals claim belongs to him. The site is marked by the chopped-up remains of a tree, where, as the story goes, a posse celebrated finally killing the legendary outlaw. But no body was ever positively identified. No proof was ever found. The man who began his life with a prophecy fulfilled it perfectly. Hascabane and Adel, the tall man destined to come to a mysterious end, the Apache Kid didn't fade from history. He simply walked off the edge of it into the snow and the legend and was never seen again. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales from the Old West. See you next time.